Hey there! In this video, I'm going to be going over who you should be going for if you're looking to pull a character in 4.8. The options are Navia, Nilou, Emilie, and Yelan. This video aims to bring you a general sense of direction if you're confused on who to go for, or if you're just generally curious. So we're going to be going over a few things here. 1. A pretty brief overview into the character and what their role is in a team. This will help you to decide who to go for from a gameplay perspective. 2. Comparisons to other characters within that element, not to pit them against each other out of toxicity, but to see if this character fits with what you need, or if another character within that element fits you more instead. 3. If you should go for constellations or weapons. And finally, if the character is good for free-to-plays. Ready? Let's go. Navia is a 5-star Geo Claymore user. She works best as a Geo DPS. Unlike other Geo characters who would benefit from being played within a mono Geo team, or as a support where Geo isn't the main element at all in the team, Navia is the complete opposite. Navia is a Geo DPS who relies on other elements to help her produce crystallized crystals. First, use her burst to provide off-field Geo, then use your other character's elements to have them collect crystallized crystals. The more crystals that are collected, the more she stacks up these little bullets, and the more she has, with the maximum amounts she can hold being 6, the more damage her elemental skill can deal. So we've spoken about how to play Navia, but how does she differ from other Geo DPSs in Genshin? We're going to be comparing her and Itto. Navia and Itto are the complete opposites in terms of team requirements. Navia is pretty flexible as she can be put into a team that has many elements to it. Itto, on the other hand, requires, well, just Geo. His best team consists of him, Albedo, Goro, and Zhongli, and while it performs well, it's nowhere near as flexible as Navia's team's options. So go for Navia if you're looking for a Geo DPS who works well with most characters, and save for Itto if you're looking for a mono Geo DPS. Some characters have cracked constellations, making going for constellations more favourable than their signature weapon. Navia is not one of these characters. There's no constellation that absolutely breaks her, like Raiden's C2 or Kazuha's C2, and I would say that Navia is pretty strong at C0. So if you're in a position to go for her cons or her weapon, I would suggest going for her weapon first. Is Navia free-to-play friendly? We've already spoken about constellations, but what about teams? Of course, her best teams include 5 stars like Zhongli, Yelan, and Farina. However, that doesn't mean that she's limited to just using those characters. Navia can work well with a lot of characters, but more particularly with those who provide off-field elemental damage. So, at least 4-star wise, you can use characters like Fischl, Xiangling, Xingqiu, Charlotte, Beidou, Lisa, or even Barbara. And of course, Bennett benefits her with his attack buff. Navia's weapons, however, are a bit more difficult. When she released, an event-exclusive weapon came out for her, but if you're a new player and you weren't playing during that time, then it's best for you to craft Tidal Shadow or save up for the Blackcliff Claymore. And also, just for the record, she is really fun and simple to play, making her kit pretty beginner friendly in terms of how to use it. She's simple, yet powerful. What's not to love? Nilou is a 5-star Hydra sword user. She works best as a DPS for Bloom teams. Nilou is most effective in Bloom teams because of her passive and kit that boosts the damage of Bloom. With her kit, and especially this passive, she is able to change regular Dendro cores into a more powerful version called Bountiful cores, making her more than ideal for Bloom teams. The difference between regular Dendro cores and these Bountiful cores is that these Bountiful cores have larger AoEs and they burst a lot faster. It's basically Bloom on anabolic steroids or something. As well as Bountiful cores, this passive also grants nearby characters more elemental mastery when they are hit by Dendro attacks. It's important to note that this passive will only work if your team only consists of Hydro and Dendro characters. Plus, these Bountiful cores cannot trigger Hyper Bloom or Bursion, so her kit is specifically ideal for Bloom and Bloom only. To use her, you'll first want to apply Dendro to an enemy using another party member, then use her elemental skill 3 times, then use her burst when it's ready, rinse and repeat. No pun intended. If you're looking to pull a Hydro DPS, Nilou may not be the one for you. While you can use her as a Hydro DPS, it wouldn't bring her out to her full potential. Also, there are way more options for if you did want to go for a Hydro DPS. Other options that would do a better job than Nilou. However, if you want a DPS for Bloom teams, you probably are going to want to go with Nilou since she's pretty much ideal for it. Nilou's C2 is incredible for her. Let's just note that down. However, Nilou's signature weapon is probably the better option, as it's also amazing to have for her. Firstly, there aren't too many HP swords in Genshin, and HP is one of the stats you're going to want to have for Nilou. But also, its passive is ideal for her, which makes sense because it's her signature, but that's besides the point. Without this weapon, it's harder to get her to 70k HP, which is what she ideally wants. So while her C2 is a great upgrade for her weapon is probably the way to go if you can't get both. Nilou is strictly for Bloom teams, so while she isn't versatile, she can be teamed up with various Dendro and Hydro characters, especially the free-to-play ones. While of course her best teams are going to consist of limited 5 stars like Kokomi, Nahida, Yelan, Alhaitham and Baiju, even Siegewing could work for her, it is totally possible to use 4 stars, and especially the ones that you get for free. You can use Dendro, Traveler, Barbara, and Kole in a Nilou team, and she'll work quite nicely. So in terms of teams, while it's nice to have more 5-star character investment, she can work well with free-to-play characters too. So if you're free-to-play and you're a Bloom fan, you can't go wrong with pulling for her. In terms of weapons, she can work well with a range of 4 stars, including 2 of the craftable ones. So again, for free-to-plays, I'd say she's a pretty good option. Emilie is a 5-star Dendro polearm user. She's not out at the time of recording this, but here's what we know so far. Emilie is set to be a sub-DPS who focuses on the elemental reaction, Burning. Emilie is set to deal damage with her elemental skill and burst, which can both be used while she's both on and off the field. Emilie gets a damage buff when a burning reaction occurs, so if you're someone who wants to use this reaction, Emilie does seem like a promising choice. Her elemental skill is a bit like Yaimiko. It summons a Dendro turret. Her elemental burst summons a higher level Dendro turret that deals more damage. At least in my opinion, she seems like a second Yaimiko, but for Dendro, and more specifically for burning. Yelan is a 5-star Hydro bow user. She works best as a Hydro sub-DPS. Yelan is able to deal Hydro damage in a variety of ways. Her elemental skill is able to produce an explosive amount of Hydro damage, and can also be used as a sword to create Hydro energy particles. Her elemental burst is able to provide off-field Hydro damage and application. To use it, you're going to want to use her burst, then switch to a main DPS who uses their normal attacks to deal their damage. Adept with Ease is able to increase the damage dealt by your active character, which is a great bonus. Her only real main competition is Xingqiu, so let's go over some of the basics between the two, since they both provide similar playstyles, especially when it comes to their bursts. Yelan, like we said, is able to provide a damage increase to your active character. Xingqiu, on the other hand, well, firstly, he's a 4-star, so you can max him out constellation-wise much easier than Yelan. Plus, he's able to provide healing and mitigation. So Yelan is great for a damage buff, while Xingqiu is great for other support purposes. But if you have both is very nice to have on a team. I know that my Hu Tao, Zhongli, Xingqiu and Yelan team has served me quite well in Abyss many times. While it's always nice to have a signature weapon on a character, her C1 fixes the energy recharge problem that she has, meaning that you're not as reliant on energy recharge rolls for artifacts as you would be if she was at C0. Plus, on her last rerun, I myself had the chance to choose between going for her signature or her C1, and I chose her C1 for that specific reason. Plus, it makes exploration fun too, so at least in my personal experience, I would go for C1 before getting her signature. Yelan is very versatile and can work in most teams, be it with Freeze, Vaporize, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, Electrocharged, you name it. So regardless of who you have, I'm sure she'll work well with whoever. Weapon-wise, while of course 5-star options are her best in slot, she can work well with a lot of 4-star options that you can get while wishing, and even some 3-star ones if you have nothing else. So in conclusion, pull for Navia if you want a Geo DPS that isn't limited to a mono Geo team. Pull for Nilou if you're looking for a solid Bloom unit. Pull for Emilie if you're looking for a burning sub DPS, and pull for Yelan if you don't have her. I'm half joking, but I want to know your thoughts. Are you pulling this patch? If not, who are you saving for? We do have Natlan around the corner, so it does make sense to start saving. Thanks for watching, follow my socials, and comment this bird emoji. Peace.